Blue Lock is a story about making a striker that can lead Japanese soccer to the World Cup. That is the motive of the narrative and is something which might get lost in translation. Becoming the best striker in the world is a driving force behind the story, but winning the World Cup is endgame. The Neo Egoist League is the current checkpoint in the story and the perfect environment to encourage growth for strikers in the program to become that hero. Nagi, Bachira, Boro, and Rin are all in good standing to become Japan's hero, but there's a clear emphasis on Isagi as we follow his story most closely. The Neo Egoist League cannot work as effectively as it should without his inclusion. It's thanks to his adaptability and thinking that several characters grow because of the challenges he presents them. His influence encourages a growth in the players from other international teams as well, with Kaiser being a prime example. Isagi's dramatic development and pushing every player to their best is the key factor that separates it from all other arcs before. Thinking back to the 3 selections, they are meant to cut down the cast. For stakes and story optimization purposes, the story focuses on a certain number of characters to get the audience familiar with the key players and enhance the arc's stakes. There are several major interpersonal developing moments that arise, but Isagi vs Naruhara feels like the most important. Their conflict highlights a very real aspect of not just soccer itself, but what it means to live in competition. They came to the barrier of what separates the mundane and limited from the exceptional and nigh limitless talent. Hunger is the name of the game. Who's going to perform beyond physical, mental, and emotional roadblocks to reach a new version of themselves? It starts to mold the egoists who will bring about a new era of Japanese soccer, leaving the rest to find their place on the field to support that egoist, create their own scoring opportunities, or locking down incoming attackers, naturally leading to the discovery that a striker is not the sole thing that makes a good team good. Due to this period of change, Isagi stands as a focused character in these arcs, but hardly their center. His ability to awaken others' talent and spatial awareness makes him an X-factor both offensively and defensively, placing him in more of a midfielder position, not the position of a striker. Yes, Isagi had his moments, but they were not consistent. Rather, they were single big ways to demonstrate the possibility for him to be consistent. This idea is no better shown than in the U20 match. The U20 match is where player roles are put into practice. With each player finding a way to announce themselves to the world, Isagi is completely without his standout moment until the end of the game. He's a facilitator for goals, and that's what led him to his time in the spotlight. Acting as a supporter for a great deal of Blue Lock's story with hints of greatness to be unveiled, he takes a back seat until the Neo Egoist League awakens him. From the word go, every major player we've grown to like and enjoy are separated into different teams based on preference. Individual personalities really shine through to create a new atmosphere around each player. Some have very interesting approaches towards developing into better players, while others capitalize on the strengths they possess. The selections were a second chance. The U20 game was a proof of concept, so the Neo Egoist League is demonstrating that these players deserve that second chance. Are these players capable of performing on a world-class level? Each U20 team seems to be encroaching on that level. Kaiser, Charles, Lorenzo, and whoever else on different U20 teams. Japan has to elevate to that level. Isagi has to elevate to that level. He's been trying to reach each challenge in front of him with a sense of progression towards his ideal self. Every time he's met with that visualization, but now he confronts a stage in his life where he must transcend those visualizations and acquire the real deal. Michael Kaiser is the exact person who will lead him to that. Kaiser is the Rin or Seitoshi for the Neo Egoist League. His motivation is not in search of beating someone close to him or finding hope in Japanese soccer. Unlike others, he uses soccer as a tool. It's meant to assert his existence to the world. To do that, from his perspective, he's defying the impossible. Coming to meet Isagi, he offers a challenge that suits both of their characters. To be more recognized, he desires to shoot down the hero of Blue Lock, and by extension, Isagi's dream of becoming the greatest in the world. As it stands, within Isagi's scope, Kaiser is the one he has to overcome. Overbearing and combative as Kaiser is, he perfectly represents Isagi's environment. This level of competition is what he wants to be used to be capable of dominating. Kaiser being his ideal gives ample pressure to make Isagi into the diamond he wants to be. He wants the eyes, physicality, and brain to outmatch opposition no matter their size. His slow growth throughout the story has led him to this point, so now he's made to accelerate not just himself, but all other Japanese players on his team like he's done once before. The Neo Egoist League is not just about him despite his role as its nucleus. He is meant to amplify every Japanese player around him to a new level, to catch up with the rest of the world. All of that begins with his first match against his friend Miguru Bachira. Bachira's character arriving at the point it does in this game has been a long time coming. His wild instinctive play placed him at an advantage for much of the story until he reached Reen, who showed him his play wasn't worth much without a sense of control and direction. The monster is a piece of who he is, so he had to use it as a weapon to bring him to the next level. His goal being the first seen in the Neo Egoist League represents his departure from the weak instinctual player he used to be. It's a success he couldn't have gotten before because he hadn't transformed into a proper striker. It's a great through line for his character and capitalizes on a very integral aspect of his character the previous arc touched on briefly and what the story has been building him up for. This large progression is a clear indication to Isagi of how behind he is and how much more driven he has to be in order to close the gap. Sitting on the bench in comparison to Otoya and Bachira grabbing starting positions alludes to the person he was once before, someone who was just behind the curve in comparison to his contemporaries and is forced to contend with his ineptitude on this new battlefield. In this revelation, he is forced to give up his goal in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds and be considered a failure as a striker once more, surrendering a goal to the same face and person he'd done long before. However, in the aftermath of his relatively poor performance in respect to his expectations, he's made his way onto the field for the next game, but it raises concerns within Yuki Mia. The problem he takes up with Isagi's assist is reminiscent of Boro's insults in their first game. This time though, Isagi fully understands his position and forges a chance to get better by being willing to prove himself in other ways, to place his dream on hold so he could grow stronger. That is a truth Yuki Mia fails to understand because of his jealousy, acting like his story is the only one that ends if he does not succeed. He acts as if his story is the only one that matters in this moment, and gaining a chance to succeed should be done through holding on to your values as a player, which he kind of proves to be true by becoming a starter in the next game against England. He, Isagi, Kunigami, and Corona are the only starters from Blue Lock during the next game. From 1 to 4, Blue Lock is slowly asserting its influence in this arc. None of them are the team's central fighting force, but their friends on the other side of the ball are their team's main attack force. It's time to face off against England and make a case for Blue Lock in Bastard Munchen. Nagi, Reo, and Chigiri are especially important for Isagi to face after Bachira. The Barcha match was testing the waters regarding his worth as a player because Bachira and Lavinho were the only really strong players on that team. Now his challenge has been pumped up to 3 or 5 separate threats if you count Kaiser and Ness. His first interaction with Reo is telling of what he's gone through to become stronger on his own. His copycat techniques have reached much higher than before, becoming the fusion he wants using the analytical strength of Sai and monstrously accurate play of Reen. Reo, following in the shadow of amazing soccer players, is distinctly in line with his character as someone who loves talented players, but without Nagi, he's not capable of much. So it's up to Chigiri to make a statement. Chigiri has stood on his own for a long while now, so asserting himself with the first goal using his super specific scientific special goal from 19 meters and 44 degrees outside of the box is as funny as it is serious. Moreover, the fact of Kaiser screwing up his shot because he was 0.2 seconds slow just doubles down on this. Nevertheless, this is Isagi's first experience with the type of monsters this trio had become. Furthermore, Nagi has been growing in his own right, trying to finally arrive beyond his infancy with soccer, performing a shot on the goal that would be impossible for anyone else, shining a light on his relationship with Reo. Despite the ups and downs of their friendship, they've managed to find a common place to understand one another. Both have been fighting to prove that they were worthy of the dream that they wanted to make come true. In their individual struggles, they found themselves in need of one another, now more than ever. Yet at the core of this revived duo sits Nagi's true desire to take down Isagi, cementing Reo as his one true sidekick and the only reason to play soccer. Achieving his goal of defeating Isagi has left Nagi without a way to move forward, but for Isagi that couldn't be farther from the truth. He's been growing this entire game from analyzing Kaiser's play to stopping a seemingly unstoppable goal. His adaptability has led him to his ideals, and he does not blink nor shiver. He simply walks through, past Nagi, past Reo, past Chigiri, and past Kaiser, until he reaches Yuki Mia. In finding this play, he changed Yuki Mia's future while becoming the game's top performer. All of this is thanks to his awakening of Metavision. Metavision has been developed as a concept which Isagi has taken advantage of several times before unconsciously. His encounter with other players who have used it knowingly and unknowingly creates a divide between certain players in skill level. Thankfully, this skill does not mean the end-all be-all. Kunigami, Corona, Agi, Ness, and Chigiri are capable of keeping pace well enough to keep the game close. This was a back and forth battle with awakenings on both sides of the ball to make it work. The aftermath of this game is a lead into the next one, Kaiser's newfound obsession with Isagi's skill and setup for a few other characters to take to the main stage alongside the other Blue Lock players. All of this in preparation to face the Ubers and Boro, another test against another striker who's been reborn. It's time to face Italy's full strength. Boro is the painful definition of great but not the best. If he possessed Metavision, he would probably be contending to be the best striker at this point in the story. Bringing this idea as a potential avenue for growth for his character would be a betrayal of it though, because he isn't some foresight planner. He plays the moment and does what he can given the circumstances he finds himself in. Thus, his operation inside the uber strategic oriented play prior to matches rather than during the game itself feels jarring. Each plan is built around him as a central attacker, with Lorenzo, Aku, Adiu, and Nico supporting him as best they can. A team which circulates around him is exactly what he needs to highlight his strength. The idea of a team centering its main attack force around one player has been seen several times at this point. Kaiser serves as Bastard Munchen's nucleus, England's attacks have begun forming around Nagi's growing creativity, and the Ubers rely on Boro's overwhelming control of the field when the ball is under his control. Snuffy perfected this concept where Chris failed because he understood Boro enough to fit him into his plans. This is personified by the team's work acting as a singular organism working in perfect harmony, which shouldn't be an environment Boro would want to play in because it isn't who he is. So his breakaway was inevitable when the plan failed on the second point attempt. Isagi saw it through world-class planning, and so did Boro. This breathes new life into his ego, which in return revives Snuffy's drive to claim his throne as the best in the world. Like his rival in Isagi, Boro has moved his team spirit to revolve around the true him. To the point even Isagi, after finding his way into the starting lineup, after stopping an impossible to predict goal and gaining his first goal with his new weapon, he cannot see a way to win, so he needed to shake things up to achieve a victory. Hiori is a character who has been waiting for a reason to play the game outside of his parents' influence, and by Isagi choosing him, he's given him that very chance. Finally gaining expectations for himself, he's able to play alongside Corona, Raichi, Yuki Mia, and Kunigami, who have proven their prowess. These four in particular are what the whole Neo Egoist League was supposed to be for these players from the beginning, an opportunity to show their strengths which were not shown in the U20 match. Hiori in particular shakes up this game by having similar vision to Isagi, but notably having the same ideas as he does. He falls into a position that Ness and Reo do by becoming dedicated passers who elevate their respective striker, which seems to be a very complete aspect of becoming a powerful striker in this story. The key difference being the seemingly psychic connection Hiori and Isagi share. He's given Isagi advice and shown his passing skills before. The final step was syncing perfectly Isagi's vision with his, unlocking both of their potentials simultaneously. This is arguably the most powerful moment in the story. It's a payoff for Isagi's character more than it is some triumphant moment for these two characters individually. Isagi has been fighting forever to raise his teammates and himself at the same time. Now he's found someone who can truly see what he sees to execute it flawlessly. It's a reward for all of his hard work. In the wake of this conclusion, it's clear that despite all of Boro's practice and drive to beat his rival, he was a step too short to win the game in convincing fashion. Isagi with several other Blue Lock players showed their strength on the field, each one gaining a decent enough salary to be proud of. Now there's nothing left except to face the player who has dominated every game he's played in, standing as the strongest in Blue Lock. It's time to fight for the title of best in the Neo Egoist League. It's time to take down PXG and Ren. The final matchup of Isagi vs Rin is as predictable as all of these matches come, so much so it's nearly annoying because of how perfect and obvious it was. Isagi has been consistently worse than every striker he's faced to this point in individual play, from the selections to U20 and at the beginning of the NEL. He's been behind the curve, but manages to rise to the occasion or surpass his peers at every single turn. Rin stands atop this dogpile as someone who's been able to see what Isagi does and plays consistently just as well as his visions, even transcending transcending them at times. To say there was never a real comparison for the two players except for one play every now and again would be like telling you that the sky is blue or that the grass is green. Therefore, Isagi had to reach his current skill level and is perfectly adept at taking on his biggest demon in the series. There is something that I haven't talked too much about regarding each team, and it is very important here, which is team philosophy. Bachira has the philosophy of freedom and expression with a master who doesn't really train his players outside of giving brief tidbits of advice here and there. England is focused on sharpening the weapons everyone has already developed and focusing on finding an optimal way to use those weapons. Italy pushed several strategies that made soccer into work, doing things within statistics and seeing how the stats of each player could be utilized in any given formation. This last approach was very close to Germany's usage of logical, rational-based decisions to dictate who plays and who doesn't, except where Italy has a team that works towards one goal, Germany has two colliding factions in any given game. PXG seems to replicate this very playstyle, switching out Shido and Rin, implementing different systems to accommodate them. Despite not having a concrete team philosophy or plan like the others, Loki still makes this dynamic work. It feels like magic because he's just 17 years old. A 17-year-old has worked out how to make Rin and Shido work together on the same field, which is something that even Jinpachi couldn't even make happen. Needless to say, Loki is a certified miracle worker. This is a key point because the coexistence of Shido and Rin needed to happen for the future U20 team to work more cohesively at a higher level. Isagi and Kaiser's clash doesn't really matter beyond this place, and there's a consistent showing that it should exist to some degree for them to get better. Two duos whose respective partners are different from them, but similar in their skill pool, and forming the dynamics they share. Three of which have been more or less explored, leaving one to be understood in full detail. Kaiser's motivation for playing soccer, for being who he is, feels too real for how much of a corny villain he can be at times. The sport he plays is a way for him to be recognized as a human, yet he's made himself someone incapable of human connections. He uses everyone to his benefit so he can look better, leading to his epiphany when he loses to Isagi. He's characterized as an emperor because he was better than everyone, because he is capable of feats beyond anyone he meets, yet when he comes in contact with others like him, he's no longer special. The stripping of his skin into rose petals on this panel offers a beautiful take on his rebirth as a black, blank canvas who hasn't surpassed his trauma. He simply bottled it up, to the point he has some of the abusive, controlling traits of his father, exerting these traits onto those around him. His twisted perception of his father's abuse created a person that fed off of others' despair, founded in his non-existent humanity. However, his chase to be realized beyond the cruelty, beyond his past, in search of love and humanity, he chose to be reborn by his dream of becoming the best in the world. This moment for the character is easily the strongest one because he assigned himself worth, and that's all he needed to be validated and to perform. Within this rebirth, Kaiser has become the greatest challenge Isagi has faced by far. Every step towards him was linear, easily identifiable, until he awakened, which truly showed what dwelled inside. For the first time in the story, Isagi's ability to bring out the best in his teammates backfires, utterly destroying his hat-trick attempt and awakening Rin Itoshi's true strength. Rin's berserker form is an amalgamation of what his brother made him to be, a non-standard striker many can't predict with logic and who can dominate the field. The idea behind the transformation places him on the opposite side of every single striker to exist, or rather all the strikers to exist within Blue Lock. Where many will take the shot, he will seek the route which leads to his evolution. Where many will seek to heighten their player worth, he will seek to heighten his kill count. To destroy Egoist is to destroy his brother. Rin's never been a monster in a conventional sense. He's always been this player beyond the curve when compared to his contemporaries. From the start to the current point, Rin has transcended the visions of everyone else. Everyone except Isagi, until he makes a play that even Isagi could not stop. The nearly unlimited growth on Isagi's part came with a significant layer of dominance beyond what every one of his rivals could hope to contend with. Therefore, someone had to solidify dominance over him and his adaptability with everything at hand, which Rin, Kaiser, Julius, and Noah have proven themselves capable of doing. Isagi's emotions become his Achilles heel thanks to his ambitions growing too great. Warning signs of this can be seen in the Ubers match when Lorenzo tells him not to get ahead of himself over his first goal. Then he was completely shut out from his hat trick when Kaiser scored. Isagi seemed to believe his skills could beat anyone's growth, but Rin proved him wrong again, exactly like he did in the 3v3 match. Isagi became lost in this domain of rapid growth, adjustment, and improvement. He tangled with the right opponents in the wrong way. What he uses to fuel his ego is a dream of being the best, contrasting Rin, who lives and dies by his desire for growth. These two characters have presented themselves as rivals who will fight to the death for their motivation to play soccer. The irony about this dynamic is how Isagi has consistently used Rin as a goalpost to get better, so when he surpasses him for that brief moment, their dynamic completely flips, and Rin has to surpass his comprehension. Rin can operate alone. No matter the restriction, he will take a place beyond the peak to climb a higher mountain. To stop that, the game needed another factor. To combat the best, the worst had to arrive. Igaguri, who cannot see what Isagi does, but knowing what he can do in the moment, makes him a key player. He's by no means some secret weapon or great prodigy, he simply knows a role he needs to play. That's the lesson Isagi needed to learn. He couldn't stop Rin's goal because he was pushing himself to be something he wasn't. His fumbled hat trick attempt follows this same idea. He was so obsessed with proving himself to be a genius because of what he thought Kaiser was and what Noah, Loki, and Rin are. That desire to catch up to geniuses led to a strong resonance with this line from Noah. Isagi emulated this trait when he saw Boro. He craves a challenge. He's just like Noah. However, he's not like his hero. He's a hero born from continuous adversity and battling what he could never be from the moment he set foot into Blue Lock. In a way, he is a purely built structure. He meticulously formed his thinking, his play, his weapons to play to his attributes. Contrast this with the chaotic instinctual play of Rin, who's naturally gifted and developed at all of those things. Under this reasoning, this panel is a hero gifted with nothing finding a monster born with everything. Both have gone through their stages of development to surpass the average player and now seek far more than ever thought, creating an equal playing field. Geniuses are the villains of talented learners because they force them to believe that no matter how much they learn, the battle of innate talent versus learned ability will always favor the geniuses. The same applies to talented learners because they force geniuses to believe their talent won't ever be enough. They will always be adapted to and surpassed by them. It's simply a matter of if one side can claim victory over the other. This single dynamic recontextualizes the entire story while setting up the ending of this game to be a marvel to witness. Isagi throwing away his pride and attachments towards anyone on the field for a win, teaming up with Kaiser and seeing his body as a vessel for a victory feels like the peak of this mountain, but as novel readers will tell you, it really isn't. The build up to this eventual tipping point is better understood when he uses language like, "I can't wait to test out this new Yoichi Isagi." His identity on the soccer field has become synonymous with a tool for victory. Everyone's story, their protagonist's feelings, and their strengths are all factors he uses to win. In making him a purely objective player who captures everything on the field, there is a distinct dehumanization of his character. His ego is still alive and well, but the way he approaches the game is such a departure from how normal people view the game, it begs the question of if this is a game worth selling your identity, your emotions, and your soul for one victory. While that is a great big question that should be answered sooner or later, it's still time for Isagi's team up with Kaiser as they fight Rin, which signals the beginning of the end for this game. Rin's adjustment to their team up, forcing zero chemistry between them, is a perfect low point, creating tension that culminates in a perfect finale. Ness, after being discarded by Kaiser and rendered as useless for a majority of this game, made his evolution perfect. It's a last-ditch effort to reach a newly evolved Kaiser, but for all the time they spent together, there was never really a connection. There was and never has been true chemistry, only a one-sided belief. Isagi saw and reciprocated that faith. Appearing as Kaiser is what Ness saw, not what his logic arrived at. Isagi scoring the final goal of this game could have been seen by a blind man, however, it's deserved. He underwent his hardest challenge yet in the story, having to come to terms with his identity on the field and to overcome the restrictions in the given circumstances, leading to quite the cathartic moment for him. His ability to bring out his teammates' potential, awakening Rin, who awakened several other players on PXG like Karasu and Charles, is a great negative effect of his advancing strength. PXG versus Bastard is the full final challenge. The game with the best of the best fighting to make a name, to survive, or be reborn. It's all here for everyone to see. The Neo Egoist League is a real marathon. It's an arc filled with a plethora of phenomenal moments, gorgeous 2-page spreads, and brings everyone out of their shells to reach for what they've been working towards for so long. It performs perfectly on the concepts such as Metavision's build-up, making rational cases for everyone who became great and who wouldn't, and what world-class play is truly meant to look like. This arc is greater in scope and performance than the rest in my opinion, but it does have its ups and downs. Starting with Kunigami, he should have gotten more moments to shine. Locking down Shido for the time he did was great revenge and pivotal for the game. Calling back to his and Isagi's first play together was nice too, but I wish he got more plays by himself like an individual goal. After all, he is modeled after Noah, who was capable of this. Corona wasn't able to do much in this final match either, which was a letdown, and in fact he does less than Kunigami. His orbital resonance with Kaiser could have been really sick if it did happen, or, you know, him linking up with Isagi again. Objectively, they are a worse team up than Hiori and Isagi, but aesthetically, they're just better. It's just so much cooler. Like, I don't give a damn, you can fight me on that. Moving on, Metavision feels too powerful at times. Metavision players like Isagi, Charles, and Hiori perform some feats I am not too fond of in retrospect. Isagi stopping Nagi and Ryo's goal is really cool, yes, but I feel like it's a stretch with how he stopped it. If it were him intercepting the pass rather than taking it out of Nagi's mid-air trap, it would have had the same effect on me. Charles being able to get the ball off Raichi in mid-air like this is also crazy as hell. I understand the spectacle though, after all, Blue Lock isn't exactly based in realism, but the Hiori no-look cross-pass bullshit, I'm not with it. I don't care, I'm not with it. Another big point is Nagi and Ryo, because they are easily the worst part of this arc for me. Bromance jokes aside, Ryo is genuinely a nothing character to me. Hiori even grows out of his quote-unquote Isagi devotion arc in a single game, and he doesn't drag down anyone for that to happen. Hiori and Isagi's relationship is what Nagi and Ryo should be if they wanted to win any serious games. Given Nagi's elimination, he has to go through some serious development to be even close to where Isagi, Boro, Bachira, Rin, or even Ryo are right now. Speaking of Ryo, his character arc seems to be coming and he needs it so he can be a truly independent player who is willing to do whatever he can to reach the World Cup stage. This breakup was necessary for both of them to develop on their own individual paths, reignite Nagi's ego, and have Ryo reconsider what it really means for him to be in Blue Lock and going to the World Cup without his quote-unquote treasure. Lastly, Isagi and Kaiser's dynamic was easily the second biggest driving force for this arc. Their rivalry and collaboration was entertaining to watch in the later games, but if there was one thing I would change about it, it would be its ending. Kaiser's realization that soccer with Isagi is fun and that his past means something thanks to Isagi could have led to a moment for Isagi to say what he was thinking, and it would have been pretty damn good for an ending to the arc. Isagi acknowledging Kaiser not out of surprise or admiration, but a moment of genuine respect would have changed their bitter rivalry into a healthier one and given the two a sense of maturity. Now, I do understand that this is reference to how Kaiser acted towards Isagi at the beginning, but after everything both of them had gone through, I thought that it would have been a much more mature, a mature and really cool and interesting moment for them to have just shook hands as mutuals and wanted to meet in the World Cup finals. I digress though. This arc is one of my favorites, especially in recent memory from any story I've read, and it holds up for me as an impressive arc amongst all of Blue Lock's story arcs. The NEL is Isagi's story for the most part, which is what I wanted to title this video. After diving into the arc even further, I chose The Road to the Best in the World because regardless of this arc's central character being Isagi, it is about every single character who makes waves in one way or another. The NEL is basically about the end of the Blue Lock program, and it's the final hurrah to send it off. And with that, I guess it's time to close out this video. I want to thank you all so much for watching this very long analysis of a very long story arc. Please stay safe out there and have yourselves a damn good one. I'll see you all next time.